Star counters on the rooftop, counting brave moments under a city sky. Eli had counted 143 stars. Cool leaves scented the night. Laundry soap drifted up from the line next door. His pencil hovered over a dotted page. The rooftop door creaked. A shaky flashlight beam wobbled across gravel. Nora Patel stepped out, hugging a wrinkled paper. Star list. Eli froze by the chimney, the rough bricks cool against his sleeve. Cars hushed below, like someone shushing a crowd. A radio somewhere down the block played a soft, tinny song that rose and sank with the wind. He pulled his hoodie tighter, like it could hide the quick beat of his heart, and tucked his secret star notebook against his chest. Nora's flashlight bobbed close, then dipped toward the ground as she spoke. "Oh," she said, breath showing in a faint thread. "I didn't know anyone was up here." Eli's mouth went dry. "I'm just getting fresh air," he managed. "Me too," Nora said, but her face tilted skyward. The dark seemed to open for them both. Then the sky scratched itself with silver, a thin streak cut fast and clean. Eli forgot to be quiet. "One," he whispered. Another streak followed, softer, like a pin drawn gently through paint. "Two," Nora whispered back. They stood 6 careful feet apart, listening to the city breathe and the night widen. Eli's shoulders lowered, just a little, as if a door inside him had cracked open to the stars. Streaks stitched the dark. Eli's lips moved, counting under his breath. Nora's whisper matched him, a soft echo. Gravel clicked under their sneakers when they shifted. Above, a silver thread burned and faded. Their 2 voices met in the middle. 3, 4. 6 feet apart, looking up, together. When the streaks thinned to faint scratches only their eyes could catch, Eli let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. He glanced toward Nora's rolled paper. She noticed and smoothed it carefully, palms flat, like unwrinkling a map. Bold letters on top said, "Star List," but the rest was a drift of names, some circled, some underlined. Arcturus, Deneb, Mira, Polaris. Little arrows pointed toward the edges, and in the margins, Nora had written things like, "Grandpa says this one is friendly and might be best after dinner." "It's silly," she said, voice soft and even. "Just names I like for stars, and where I think they are. My grandpa and I used to look for them." Eli opened his notebook. Tiny dots, tiny labels, tiny question marks. He turned the page toward her with careful hands. "You draw them," Nora said, "and you count. That's not silly." Eli swallowed. Words felt heavy and slippery in his mouth, the way stones feel before you skip them. "There's a meteor shower this week," he said. "The librarian told me. It might be best tomorrow or the next night." Nora tapped her flashlight gently, thinking. "Maybe we can see more if the lights are lower," she said. They leaned on the low wall. Eli lifted a steady finger, tracing shapes without touching anything. "There," he said. "Little Dipper. The last one is Polaris." His voice settled. Nora squinted, then smiled. "I see it. The handle curves like a question." A plane blinked red and slid away. The more Eli traced the sky, the less his voice shook. He connected the Little Dipper's bowl, then slid his finger along the handle. "See those 2 stars on the end of the big bowl?" he asked, angling his pencil like an arrow. "Draw a line. It points right to Polaris." Nora followed, chin tilted, eyes bright with the hunt. The night air felt kind and steady on Eli's cheeks. He liked how the stars didn't hurry. He liked how they kept their places if you looked long enough. His notebook pages had smudged dots and careful labels, and sometimes 3 question marks in a row when he wasn't sure. He imagined someone else standing with him, asking, "Show me again?" and him saying, "Sure," without his throat going tight. "There's a quiet bell sound to Polaris," he said, surprising himself. "Like it hangs and everything moves around it." Nora nodded, as if that made perfect sense. "My grandpa would have liked that. He said some stars feel like anchors." Eli tucked that away. Maybe, he thought, we could invite people up here. Maybe the rooftop could feel like a small planet for a night. The metal door groaned. Mr. Alvarez stepped out, broom like a staff, keys soft at his belt. He lifted a cautioning hand. "Careful up here," he called. "No running." Eli and Nora nodded, in perfect owl imitation still, wide-eyed. The superintendent's half-smile said he'd seen night skies too. Mr. Alvarez leaned on his broom, a lighthouse in the doorway's glow. "Stars look good tonight," he said, almost to himself. "I used to spot meteors with my cousins." His voice wrapped around the memory and set it down gently. "Lock the door when you're done." He clicked the switches beside him off and on once, testing, then let them be. The hallway light made a soft amber puddle near the threshold, but above the sky was full, a dark lake with tiny lamps. Nora rolled her paper again, careful not to crease the title. "I'm going to make a better list," she said. "One with places and times." Eli hugged his notebook. I have an idea," he blurted, then felt heat climb his neck. "A star wheel. Paper plates. The librarian showed me." Nora's eyes lit like someone just turned a dimmer up. "Let's try tomorrow," she said. "We can ask Mr. Alvarez if we need the hallway lights dimmed, if that's allowed." Mr. Alvarez gave 2 easy nods, the kind that meant maybe. "If we keep it safe," he said. Eli swallowed his nerves, nodded back, and felt a small, brave click inside. At lunch, Nora sat by the tall window, eyes on a ribbon of sky. Eli slid 1 seat closer, tray squeaking. "Hi," he said. "Do you want half my cookie?" He nudged it forward. Nora blinked, then smiled, breaking it into perfect halves. "Trade for a grape?" The cafeteria's clatter rolled around them like a faraway storm. In their corner, sound tucked under a blanket. Eli peeled his apple carefully, trying to keep the red skin in one long curl. Nora turned a grape with the tip of her finger, a tiny planet spinning. "The gravel up there sparkled," she said, "like someone shook a salt shaker over the roof." Eli nodded, and the plane blinked and then was gone. He paused, then added, "I like how stars don't disappear right away." Nora watched the thin stripe of sky between buildings. "My grandpa told me stories for the shapes," she said. "After we moved, I couldn't find them. At school I feel like glass the sun shines through." Eli thought of how he hugged his notebook to his chest on the stair landing, as if his ribcage were another cover. He didn't have the right words for her glass feeling, so he slid his napkin over and smoothed it flat. "Want to draw a map?" he asked. He dotted 2 pointer stars, then a third for Polaris. The napkin went damp, but their lines held. It felt like holding onto something small and steady together. On the flattened napkin, 2 dots leaned like careful arrows. A third dot labelled Polaris anchored the corner. Eli's pencil left tiny silver smudges. Nora added a curved handle, neat and small. Their trays crowded close cookie half, grape, apple peel ribbon coiled like a red comet tail. After lunch, the library's children's corner smelled like paper and warm lamplight. Eli showed Nora the poster pinned above the beanbags, the one with a sky wheel and months along the rim. The craft cart held paper plates, markers, and a clear cup of brass brads that clicked softly when he lifted one. "It's called a planisphere," Eli said, the fancy word feeling interesting in his mouth. "But we can call it a star wheel. You line up the date and time, then look through the cutout." Nora slid a plate onto another and pressed the center flat. "We could make extras," she said, "if we invite kids from the building." She glanced up, checking Eli's face like checking a compass. "Only if you want to." Eli did and didn't at the same time. His stomach fluttered like he was standing on the top step, not sure about the jump. But his chest also felt wider. "I want to," he said. "We can ask Mr. Alvarez about dimming the hallway lights near the door, just the ones that glare." Nora nodded once, decisive. "Let's make a list," she said, and they began. Plates, brads, tape, markers, blankets, juice boxes, and a note to ask about switches. Under the desk lamp's warm circle, a how-to page showed a turning sky wheel. Eli pressed a brass brad through 2 plates. It clicked with a tiny, brave sound. Nora traced a window on the top plate. The poster above them pointed toward Polaris like a friendly finger in the dark. The stairwell smelled like laundry soap and a little bit of dust. Their steps echoed in stacked beats as they climbed. By the roof door, a row of clunky switches waited with handwritten labels. Hall 1, Hall 2, Exit, Roof Spill. Nora's flashlight beam wobbled, then held steady. Mr. Alvarez met them at the landing, clipboard tucked under his arm, keys chiming softly like distant bells. "We have a question," Nora said. She didn't rush. "There's a meteor shower this week. Could we invite kids up to watch, if it's safe? We can bring blankets and snacks. And we were wondering if a couple hallway lights near the door could be dimmed, just so we can see more sky." Eli tried to nod without looking like a bobblehead. "We'll keep everyone back from the wall," he added. "No running." Mr. Alvarez listened with his whole face, not just his ears. He studied the switches as if each one had a story. Then he gave 2 measured nods. "We can try," he said. "We'll keep the exit lit. I'll stand at the door. You make signs for safety, and we'll sweep the gravel flat." Eli felt the landing steady under his sneakers. The plan had weight now, and a door to walk through. A neat row of switches waited by the wired glass door. Labels leaned in careful marker. Hall 1, Hall 2, Exit, Roof Spill. Mr. Alvarez's thumb hovered above them, steady. Eli's paper star wheel peeked from his hoodie pocket. Nora's flashlight cast a pale rectangle on the eggshell wall. They worked after school, elbows almost touching over the craft cart. Nora lettered "Star Night" in bold marker across half sheets of paper. Rooftop, bring a blanket, snacks, welcome. Ask Mr. Alvarez at the door. Eli added simple drawings, a scoop for the dipper, an arrow to Polaris, a small circle for a star wheel's window. He measured tape pieces and stuck them lightly to the desk edge like a fringe. They practiced with their own star wheels, lining up Friday at 8 and turning the plates until the curve of the Big Dipper slid into the cutout. "What if someone asks where to look first?" Nora said. Eli imagined a group, the way feet shift when people aren't sure. "We'll start with the bowl," he said. "Then pointer stars, then Polaris. Slow." They made signs for safety. No running. Stay behind the tape line. Ask before stepping forward. Nora tucked a brad and a marker into her overall pocket for luck. Eli placed his notebook in his backpack like a treasure going on a trip. When they were done, they stood quietly, looking at their neat, small list with every box checked. The plan felt real enough to hold. Evening smelled like cinnamon and wet metal. Eli spread blankets on tape-marked spots. He smoothed punched paper constellations along the low wall, Big Dipper, then boots, the kite Nora's grandpa loved. Nora arrived in her navy cap, stitched with tiny silver stars, hugging a tote that clinked with brads, markers, and folded paper plates. Kids clattered up the stairs in small clusters, voices bouncing off cinder block and then flattening under the open sky. Some came because there was nothing else, some because they'd heard a rumor about chips, a few because curiosity tugged harder than the couch. A boy in a sports jacket glanced around and snorted, "We're going to count stars. With all these lights. My cousin says you need a mountain." Eli felt his voice thin to a thread. He looked at the city glare leaking over the parapet, and then at their neat safety signs. His hand found his star wheel and turned it once, the cardboard whispering against itself. Nora met his eyes and gave one calm nod, the kind that didn't shove but invited. She jogged to the door. "Mr. Alvarez? The switches?" Mr. Alvarez stood in the doorway, solid as a lighthouse. He folded his arms, then unfolded them to reach for the labels. "We'll try it," he said, mostly to the kids, so they would hear the plan's steadiness. Eli stepped to the tape line and took a breath that seemed to move the night. He could do slow. He could start with the bowl. Click, click, click. The hallway spill dimmed to amber. Streetlight glare stayed far, but above them the Big Dipper sharpened clear as a scoop waiting in a freezer. Footsteps shuffled closer to the tape line. Mr. Alvarez stood at the door like a lighthouse. The rooftop felt wider, like a held breath let go. Eli lifted his star wheel, the edge cool against his fingers. He kept his voice slow, the way he liked to be taught. "Okay," he said. "Find the bowl of the Big Dipper. See the two stars at the rim. Draw an invisible line through them." He slid the cardboard rim across his palm and pointed. Heads tipped back, a dozen chins tilted toward the same patch of night. "That line points to the North Star Polaris," he continued. "It doesn't move much. Everything else wheels around it." He turned the plate so the months ticked past. The soft scratch sounded like paper footprints. "If you ever feel lost, you can look up and find north." A girl in a pink hoodie whispered, "I think I see it." A smaller kid said, "Wait, show me again." And Eli did, his finger steady now, his breath even. Nora moved along the line, quietly placing extra wheels in patient hands and nodding when eyes clicked into understanding. The rooftop wasn't a stage, it was a circle. Eli realized he didn't have to shout to be heard. He only had to invite people to look and leave enough silence for seeing. Nora lifted the flashlight. Light spilled through the punched paper kite of buotes, scattering tiny moons onto the low wall. The shape landed sharp and bright. "My grandpa called him a sky traveler," she said, beam steady. Eli watched the small constellation glow, like a story pinned in place for everyone. The crowd leaned in as if the wall were a movie screen. Shadows of heads cut little crescents from the light. "That's cool," someone breathed. "What's the bright star there?" Nora tapped the paper where the kite's tail pointed. "Arcturus," she said. "You can find it by following the Dipper's handle arc to Arcturus." She drew the curve in the air with the flashlight, and the beam trembled only once. Eli felt a laugh slip out, small and easy. He passed his own flashlight to a kid who was chewing chips carefully so crumbs wouldn't fly. "Shine this through the Dipper," Eli said. "You make the scoop." The boy's eyebrows lifted as the dotted bowl appeared. "No way," he whispered. Feet scraped as more kids edged close, careful of the tape line. The rooftop changed shape. It wasn't a flat place anymore. It was a bowl itself, everyone curved around a quiet center, the sky. Eli and Nora moved slow, repeating names and motions. The stars stayed the same, but the faces looking up changed, softening, opening. Eli kept catching Nora's eye, and each time she gave that single sure nod, the one that said, "We're okay, keep going." A meteor streaked wide and bright, so bright a chip slipped from a kid's fingers unnoticed. For a heartbeat, the rooftop was a held breath and silver line. Then cheers rose, small pops and warm bubbles of sound. Even Mr. Alvarez's mustache tilted with a grin in the door's amber glow. In the warm spill of voices, Eli felt something unlock. He held out his notebook to Nora, the way you hand someone a water bottle when both of you are laughing and out of breath. "Show them your favorites," he said. The words came easy, not like stones at all. Nora turned to a page where Eli had sketched booties with a shy question mark. She added a tiny triangle near the top, labeling it Arcturus in neat letters, and dotted a small arrow with "Next season" in the margin. "You draw gentle," she said softly to Eli, so only he could hear. "Like you're listening to the page." Eli's cheeks warmed, not with the old heat of embarrassment, but with a new, one being seen and not wanting to hide. Around them, kids traded star wheels, compared the cutouts, and argued happily about which dot was which. "Arc to Arcturus," the pink hoodie girl repeated, like a chant. Eli pressed his pencil in and added tonight's date at the corner of the page. His handwriting didn't wobble. For once, the city's noise fell behind his thoughts instead of on top of them. Juice boxes emptied with soft slurps. Blankets tucked under knees. Murmurs bubbled. "I see it!" and "Wait, show me again!" The siren far away thinned to a tiny thread and snapped. The punched papers made a spray of moons on brick. Eli and Nora's shoulders sat an inch higher, full of quiet pride. Eli had never liked speaking in front of groups. At school, his hand hovered near the air and then settled back, pretending it meant to scratch his ear. Tonight felt different. The sky gave him lines to say. He didn't have to invent anything. He just had to notice and point. The rooftop made a gentle theatre where the ceiling didn't end. Someone tugged his sleeve. "Is that one the North Star?" the sports jacket boy asked, not snorting now, just curious. Eli followed his gaze and nodded. "Yes, draw the line from the bowl's rim. You found it." The boy grinned, and the grin didn't have sharp edges. Nora passed behind them, her flashlight tapping her hip. "We could make a wall map later," she said quietly. "Tape where we saw each meteor." Eli pictured a paper sky along the hallway, dots and arrows and kids stopping to add one more pinprick. The idea sat warm in his chest. He glanced at Mr. Alvarez, who leaned with his broom like a tall, patient planet. The superintendent gave a small thumbs up, almost hidden, and Eli felt his shoulders settle into a new shape. Later, the group thinned to a few slow footsteps. Blankets folded with soft flaps. The sky kept its steady wheel. Mr. Alvarez leaned in the doorway, broom resting. Eli and Nora stood by the low wall, faces tipped up. The city hummed like a kind machine that didn't mind the dark. They gathered stray cups, shook crumbs from the blankets, and lifted tape carefully so it wouldn't curl or bite. The punched papers made soft shushing sounds as Nora stacked them, stars aligning in neat piles. Mr. Alvarez came over, slow steps sure on gravel. He looked at the safety signs one by one, then at the switch panel's glow, then at the sky, which offered no opinions but many lights. "You two did good," he said. "Kept it safe, kept it steady." He slid a folded plastic bag from his jacket pocket for the trash. His moustache tilted in the way it did when a story sat on his tongue. "When I was little, we'd lie on the roof with my abuelo and count birds by day, meteors by night. He always said, 'Look long enough and the sky makes room for you.' Eli tucked that sentence into his notebook with the care of a pressed leaf. Nora's dimple flashed. "We can do it again," she said, not as a question. Mr. Alvarez nodded once, then once more, like stamping approval on a form. "You tell me the day," he said. The door's amber rectangle looked softer now, like a welcome instead of a warning. Monday. Nora didn't sit alone. 2 kids leaned over the window table, arguing softly. "Is the Big Dipper upside down?" one asked. Nora smiled as Eli set down his tray. "Depends on the time," she said. Eli bit his apple. The crisp snap sounded like a small, bright check mark in his chest. Eli opened his notebook to a clean page and wrote the date in the corner. Beneath it, he drew a little square and checked it. "Today, I shared." It wasn't loud sharing. It was the kind that slid in beside someone and made a small space for looking up. Across from him, Nora cut her sandwich into even pieces, then pushed one onto an extra napkin without asking, as if the table itself had taught them how to trade. The 2 other kids tried to line up the pointer stars on the napkin map, squinting like they could bend daylight into night. "Arc to Arcturus," the pink hoodie girl said, testing the word's shape in her mouth. Eli grinned. The phrase felt like a secret handshake that worked with the sky. At recess, he noticed his feet aimed him toward the library instead of the edge of the blacktop where he sometimes paced. He paused under the star chart and didn't feel like hiding under it. His voice had a place to go now. Out, but not scattered. It followed lines he trusted. It landed on names that stayed. After school, they climbed again. The sky wore not quite orange, not quite blue. 2 paper-plate wheels rested on the low wall. A first star blinked like a shy eye. Eli and Nora didn't rush it. They let the quiet climb up the stairwell and spread across the gravel like a soft, open blanket. They spun the plates, listening to the whisper of cardboard on brick. Nora didn't look at Eli when she asked, which made it easier for the answer to arrive on its own time. "How many brave moments make a brave person?" Her voice was light, like the wind that teased the edge of Eli's hood. Eli searched the pale sky where night would live later. Sometimes, if he stared long enough, he imagined he could place Polaris even before darkness, a ghost star waiting in the right spot. Maybe that wasn't how eyes worked. Maybe it was how remembering did. "Maybe you only need one to start," he said, "and then you count." The words surprised him with how sure they felt. Nora nodded, her dimple showing. "Counting helps," she said. Eli thought of his tiny boxes with neat checks. He didn't have a tally for big acts, no rescue missions, no mountain climbs. But he had a stack of small braveries. A half cookie offered, a question asked on a stair landing, a notebook turned outward, a finger steady under starlight. The list didn't look loud. It looked like the dipper's handle curving him toward the next bright point. The rooftop door eased open. 2 kids slipped out, a bag of pretzels crinkling between them. Their sneakers whispered on gravel. They paused at the tape line that still marked the edge of safe. Eli lifted a hand in hello. Nora tapped her flashlight once against her palm and smiled, bright as a small moon. "Want to try something?" Eli asked the pretzel pair. He didn't force his voice louder than it wanted to be. He just shaped it clear. He held out a star wheel, the cardboard warm from the last set of hands. "Line up today's date and the time," he said. "Now look through the window. See the Big Dipper?" The older kid frowned at the cutout, then at the sky. "Kind of?" Nora stepped beside him and traced the bowl in the air, slow as if drawing in sand. "These 2 are pointer stars," she said. "Imagine a line through them. That line points to Polaris, which barely moves. The younger kid squinted, pretzel forgotten halfway to his mouth. "Oh, that one?" Eli followed the direction of his finger and smiled. "Yes, that one." They practiced the motion 3 times, like teaching a rhythm to feet. Gravel shifted under their sneakers with soft clicks. The city made its usual hum, but it seemed to hum with them instead of over them. Nora handed over the flashlight for the paper constellations, and the boys took turns making a small galaxy dance along the wall. Eli opened his notebook and wrote a small line. People gasped at the Big Dipper. Under it, he drew a tiny scoop, neat and sure, the handle curving like a question. His pencil tip made a soft silver whisper. The page felt steady under his hand, like a good railing in the dark. Nora leaned her elbow into Eli's arm, a quick comet bump that didn't ask for attention so much as mark a path. "We did it," she said. Not just the big night, Eli knew, but this coming back, making the roof a place where their feet knew where to stand. Eli looked at the city and felt it look different back at him, as if some of its windows had turned friendly. The laundry lines on the neighboring buildings swayed a little, and the air smelled like someone's dinner settling into warmth. "Yeah," he said, "we did." He realized the words didn't scare him as much as they used to. We meant he wasn't carrying the sky alone. He closed his notebook with a soft thwap and set it next to the star wheels, like 3 instruments leaning together between songs. "Next time," Nora said, "we can try finding Deneb or Mira." She tapped her flashlight, thinking. "And maybe we can make a map for the stairwell wall. People can add dots when they see something." Eli pictured the switch panel with new labels: roof spill, exit, and why not, wall map. He smiled at the thought and nodded once, the way Mr. Alvarez did when a plan felt good in the bones. They stood shoulder to shoulder, not touching, but matched like 2 notes in the same chord. The city hummed steady and kind beneath them. Above, the Dipper hung like a scoop, ready to serve more night. The North Star kept its place. Their breaths rose and settled, small clouds that didn't need to hurry. Eli thought about brave people the way books talked about them: helmets and capes, speeches and spotlights. That version always felt like a shirt 2 sizes too big. Standing here, bravery felt like something else, a list of smaller things you could fit in your pocket. He pictured his page of boxes, each one a tiny door to step through. Offer half a cookie. Check. Ask a question on the landing. Check. Turn a notebook outward. Check. Trace a line through pointer stars until someone else whispers, "I see it." Check. He didn't feel taller. He felt steadier, like his feet had learned a simple pattern. Bowl, pointers, Polaris, repeat. "I used to think brave had to sound loud," he said. Nora tilted her head, listening. "Sometimes it's a quiet voice that doesn't run away," she said. They both looked up. The night wasn't asking anything fancy of them. It asked for eyes, for patience, for the kind of silence that made room. Eli's chest wasn't hiding his heart anymore. It was holding it, like careful hands around a small flame that knew where to burn. "There," Eli said, fingertip steady. "Polaris." It didn't shout, it held. It hung like a quiet bell at the end of a handle. Everything else eased around it in a slow wheel. Nora's dimple showed. The sky felt closer, not because it moved, but because they had. The first star of evening blinked again, less shy now that night had its coat on. Eli and Nora didn't race it. They counted it, softly won, and waited for the second to raise its small hand. The rooftop door opened with a polite sigh. 2 more kids stepped out, pretzel bag crinkling, steps careful at the tape. Nobody asked if a mountain was required. Nobody said you couldn't count from here. Eli touched his notebook's craft cover, then opened to a fresh page. He dated the corner and drew a small square to check later. "Ready?" Nora asked. She tipped her navy cap back, silver stars along the brim catching the last light. "Ready," Eli said, and meant it the way you mean, "I can carry this." They lifted their faces. The city hummed, steady as a heartbeat under a warm sweater. Above, constellations took their places, not in a hurry, but on time. Eli traced the bowl, the pointers, the bell that didn't ring, but still called. They would count meteors, sure, but they would also count nods, shared flashlights, new lines learned. They would count brave moments, one by one, and let the numbers make room. The end.